Hello and welcome back to the Kiran Roberts podcast. It's so good to have you here. And today we have a special guest. He's more than a guest, he's family. His name is Wesley Hendricks. He's a graphic designer and a barista from Melbourne. But as anyone knows, he is so much more than that. And we're going to get into his story. We're going to talk about culture. We're going to talk about growing up in South Africa. And man, this is one I can't wait for you to hear. He's a legend, as I said. He's more than a friend. He's family. So, without further ado, hello, Wesley.
Yeah, sweet.
How you going, bro?
I'm really excited about this. This is like I said to you before in the messages. Just talking to you in person is obviously so much better. But this is sweet.
It's actually much better quality than I expected. If I focus right, it feels like you're actually in the room.
Yeah, sweet. Well, it looks like you're in the room. You look like 3D right now.
I know. You'll see the video. It's funny. But anyway, let's get into it. I don't like small talk, so let's get into it straight away. I know about you. I know your story, and I know some people that are listening will know your story. But tell me about, I don't know, 0 to 20. What's going on in Wesley's life? Where are you from? What's your background?
So I'm originally from Cape Town, South Africa. I was born there. I grew up in Johannesburg, so for a lot of people they'd know that as like the crime central of South Africa. But for me that was home. A lot of people actually spoke about the crime quite a bit when I came over here, and it was hard for me to really recognize that because for me, we didn't experience any crime while we were over there. So to hear about it over here was kind of weird. But yeah, I came from like a really small family. It's just me, mum and dad. I have no brothers, sisters, or anything like that. So growing up was my main influence outside my parents were like my cousins and family friends and stuff. So, but yeah, Dad decided that Australia would just be a better place for me, to grow up in, and better influences for me. And Dad wanted me to be at an Adventist high school, which is hard to come by over there in South Africa because there are Adventist schools, but it's not as funded as it is here in Australia by government and stuff like that. So Dad really wanted a really good education for me, so I kind of came over here. And yeah, kind of just found my feet, grew up. I feel like I've done most of my growing up here, although I have grown up a lot in South Africa and I still remember a lot of it. It's I feel most of my growing up was probably here, I'd say.
So when did you leave South Africa?
2006.
Okay. How old were you?
I just turned 14, I think, a day after or the day we arrived here.
Okay, so I moved. Well, this is not even. It's not a very fair comparison, but I moved from Tasmania when I was 13, and thinking back to 13-year-old Kiran, a lot more than I'd probably admit shaped me from 0 to 13. Hanging out with the people I did. How much did South Africa shape you? What was the transition like moving from a place like Johannesburg to where did you move to in Australia?
Central Coast, New South Wales, well, Kurumbong, but yeah. Mm-hmm. Being shaped in South Africa was, the last few years of being in South Africa, I met my friend, Jordan, Nembard, who, he was really into hip hop and stuff like that. And, Jordan, taught me everything from culture, and gave me probably my first taste of what culture was. Because before then I was being my mum used to dress me. So until I met Jordan, I knew what brands were. I knew who Kanye West was because of Jordan.
So is that how old your Kanye West obsession is?
Yeah, this goes back to yeah. So this is when Diamonds first came out, the song Diamonds first came out, and when South Africa, and I had no idea what the song was, and and Jordan was like, I can't believe it. You don't know what diamonds. You haven't heard diamonds and all this. I didn't even know who Kanye West was at the time.
Mm.
So like he like really introduced me to all of that. I hope he doesn't hear this podcast because it's gonna sound like I'm like gassing the guy. But no, he was really cool, man. He's like, and he gave me some of his clothes, and like that kind of started me off on like thinking of how I dressed or anything like that, because before then, like, dressing was just nothing to me. It was just like a side thing. So like Jordan was like a big part of that side culture wise, and then I had like my cousins and stuff. And I think like a lot of my loyalty and a lot of some of my qualities come from those friends. Probably because I hung out with them probably the most, and probably had more to do with them than anyone else. So yeah, that was like, I think that was the building blocks for who I am now, was probably South Africa. But I think on top of that was the move over here. But yeah, that wasn't the question.
I've actually got pop culture written down, and we're going to get into that, because when I think of culture, when I think of pop culture and what is trending and what is classic, all that that culture has to do with, I think of you. And so we're going to get to that. But were you fresh coming into Australia? Were you like one of those fresh kids who was really out of place, or did that friendship that you made with Jordan really help you when you moved over?
It definitely helped me, but I'd say moving over here it was easy kind of fitting in, I'd say, for the most part, because I was like the new kid. I was the guy with the accent, and like, this is not to toot my own horn, but like everyone wanted to hang out with the new guy, because at my age, like, not many kids knew guys with a different accent to them here in Australia. So like when I came to Morisset High School, it was like, yeah, I made heaps of friends like real easy. But yeah, it's like it wasn't really hard at that point. I think because everything was kind of handed when you're international and you come over here, everything's kind of like socially everything's handed to you, because like everyone's keen to get to know you, everyone's keen to like show you around and that sort of thing. So that part of it was kind of easy, the social aspect, because I made friends like almost instantly when I hit the ground running over here. So
it's funny you say that, because being not international but being coloured, when I was growing up and when I moved to Queensland, it was hard for me. I'm lucky that I have quite good social skills, and I find it really easy to make friends. But I know some of my peers who, they look different to the normal Australian, and they're coloured. They sometimes can find it hard. What was it like, for you being black in a white world? I know for me at times it was, there have been times in my life that I found it really hard. Especially being someone like you who has moved from a country that is, in your world, not generally South Africa because we know the history, but in your world in South Africa, it was coloured, we'll say.
Yeah.
And you moved into a world which was mostly white. Was there any kind of struggle there or not? Or have you in your life found any struggle?
What was that last question?
Or any time in your life, really, has there been a conflict between your colour and the culture that you find yourself in?
Yeah, like, I mean, when we were in South Africa, Dad had always told me, he'd never spoken about a certain race being, he never spoke about a certain race in particular. Whenever talking about anything to do with equality or anything like that, because I don't think Dad ever wanted me to think that one race was above another. And the only way I actually really heard about this whole race thing when I was younger was actually from extended family, like hearing the old men in our family talking about their day, and like talking about the white people and what they'd done and all that sort of thing. And so that was my first kind of like interaction when it came to like kind of the race thing. And so like coming over here, it was quite easy just like seeing everyone for who they were. But in saying that, like it, there were things that I probably looked past when I came here, um, that I kind of see now. Like when I first came here, everyone was like, "Oh, I thought you were going to come in skins," when they announced that there was going to be an African kid coming to our school, and like my friends were like, "Oh," like not my friends, but like guys that I knew at the time. When I went to Morisset High School, they were like, "Oh, I thought you were going to be like rocking up in like skins and stuff," like. And it was like that was weird, like for me.
Mm,
I was like, I don't even understand that. Like from where I come from, it's like cities and like
mm.
and all that sort of thing. So for someone to assume that I'm coming over
Like a
and
bushman.
I'm meant to, it's like what? Like I don't even get that. Like, and I haven't even seen anyone in skins in Africa. So like that's like yeah. So like for me, I really felt like that sense of like I don't even know if it was intentional racism, but probably just ignorance, I'd say.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I mean, I haven't had it as bad as a lot of people, so I can't really complain and say, oh, I've had it terrible and my race has put me back a lot and that sort of thing. Because I can't see it as much as my parents can probably see it, and how I was set back in South Africa because of who I was.
Hmm.
And I think Australia is a much more forgiving country when it comes to that. So I don't think I've seen it as much, but I think my parents have probably seen it a lot more than I have. So
So so I want to tie this back into pop culture. You said when you were in South Africa, it was really when you started to really see culture for what it was. I don't know about you, but I feel like Australia, maybe not now, but in the past, has always been way behind on culture. Pop culture in
mm,
Australia, for me, growing up especially, was like always like a few years behind everyone else.
yeah,
To the point where I just don't think they care. That's the working class kind of mentality of
mm,
any country. They just who
yeah,
cares about culture when you have to put food on the table. Um,
yeah, 100%, and that's fair enough.
yeah, and so when you move to
Do you,
Australia,
do you think the internet? Sorry, do you think the internet's like done a lot more for us in that regard? Like, I think like we're almost on the same wavelength as the Western world is at this
mm,
point.
hmm
Like because of the internet, I think you think like but like let's take even like Instagram out of the equation. Like you remember the days of like Tumblr and stuff like
mm,
that. Like how much community was like built around that.
hmm
And I think that was the first probably element of a lot of countries seeing what America was doing at the time. Because let's be honest, like America was the lead in like pop culture. Like Hollywood comes from there,
hmm
hip hop comes from there. Like um, and so like I think um people were always going to find a way for pop culture to make itself prevalent in their world. So like it was Tumblr before that, and then it was MySpace before that, and but yeah, as you said, like Australia has always been kind of behind on that kind of thing. But I think because of the rise in internet and because of social media, I think we're just scratching the surface really right now.
hmm
But yeah,
So how did
I,
you carve out your own you know, how did you be you in accepting the culture that you liked and the clothes that you liked moving to Australia?
ha, sorry, can you say that again? I
In
didn't quite understand.
in moving to Australia, you just found culture. You just found Kanye West. Did you leave
Yeah.
James behind? Did you come to anyone who was like on that level with you?
Um, yeah, probably a few people. I really settled into like the Islander community when I came over here.
Mm,
Um, and like they kind of took me as their own. Like I still have a best friend now. Who like who I've been friends with since then. So, um, and like yeah, it was in a sense like wherever you go, there is always going to be a community there that follows. Like if if there wasn't a Jordan here, there would be a James here. Like
mm,
there'd be someone here that kind of matches your trajectory in life. But like I think especially like being like international, you don't even know what to expect when coming over here. Like I got to admit, like I was probably quite a bit ignorant when coming over here as well. Like you look at you've seen movies like Crocodile Dundee, and then you've seen like Animal Planet, and you've watched Steve Irwin doing his thing back in South Africa, and you come over here and you think that that's what it's all about.
hmm
But like you have your own ignorance. So yeah, coming over here, you you got to adapt with, yeah, I guess your environment in a sense. And that's always the hard part because adapting always has like a um, adapting always has what's I don't know. I'm trying to find the word right now. Um, it always has its like downside because you don't realize how much of yourself you're really covering up when you're adapting.
Mm, mm.
So there came to a point in my time here in Australia where I was like, actually, like, who is Wes? Like,
Mm.
because you've you've been one thing in South Africa, um, and you've been molded by that, and then you've got to kind of break the mold when you come to Australia because like you've got to almost reinvent yourself. You you have to reinvent yourself because otherwise people don't really understand who you are
Do you
because you
think
can't bring the same person you are from South Africa to here. You know
do,
what I mean?
do you think that's one of the downsides of pop culture? I mean, pop means popular. And so
Yeah,
in a way it really by proxy forces you to adapt to that which is popular as opposed to always being you.
yeah, yeah. But I think, and that's the same sense as like coming to Australia. You have to like reinvent yourself,
Mm-hmm.
but always remember who you are at the same time. So like for me, when it comes to design and art and all that sort of thing, how do I reflect myself in that space, but still show elements of Wes? Because like at the end of the day, like it's easy enough to just copy anything. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think there's anything original now. Like, I think we've hit the ceiling on all of that at this stage, and that's why our society is like I'd call our generation a recycle generation. Like, there's like new twists on old things. Like everyone's dressing 80s right now. Everyone's
Mm.
dressing like no one's dressed like there's actually no 2019
No, I thought about that.
like dress like there's none of that, man. Like
No.
we're taking twists of old generations. Like, and you look at music now, even like even with sampling when it comes to hip hop and stuff like that, we're like sampling old stuff. So like 2019 is like the year of like creating.
It's more about combinations.
Yeah, 100%. And like the king of all of this, the person crowned of all of this is like people like Virgil Abloh, who like,
Mm-hmm.
and I've mentioned this. I mentioned him in the last podcast that you would have listened to with Brado. Um, like Virgil's thing is like um, taking taking things and putting his twist on it. So if you've seen his like Nike collaboration with like where he did the 10,
Mm-hmm.
like all the different silhouettes, and he put his own like twist on that. That's like that right there is like what our culture is right now.
Mm.
We're pretty much all Virgil Ablohs. Like we're all like putting a twist on what already was. Because like we've tried the future thing. Like there was the mid 2000s or end of like 2010 or something where we're like playing around with like more futuristic looks in terms of clothing and stuff like that. I don't know the particular time in the 2000s, but we did that, and like quickly it changed, and like vintage was a thing now. Like and going to op shops and stuff like that. When like back back in the day, like going to op shops was seen as like the
Mm.
biggest taboo thing. You wouldn't do that. Like
Unless you were
if your
poor.
mum shopped it, yeah, exactly. And so we've almost reversed that as a generation. Like it's actually a really beautiful thing. But on the end of it, like it's like who are we? You know what I mean? And that's the same question I'd ask myself. So it's kind of like it parallels a bit, I guess.
So how do you navigate
It's
that as a designer? As a graphic designer,
uh,
how do you navigate that like ridiculously complex space of trying to be you while trying to be, on trend, for example? That's like, man, you
mm,
look at any design page on Instagram, so many people pander to what's trending in design.
yeah,
And I feel like the
yeah.
individuality is lost. But how do you even be individual in a world where it's all about, recycling and combinations because there is nothing new under the sun?
Well, I recycle myself. Like I take inspiration from 90s movies or like 80s color palettes and that sort of thing. And that's I try and find inspiration not from design or the art world. I try and find inspiration outward. So if I'm like I don't know. I can be sitting in a train, and be looking at the seats, and I like the way I like the color of those seats, or I don't like the color of those seats, or like I don't know, talking to someone and having like a really in-depth conversation and looking at the shirt color they've chosen, and I'll like zone out completely out of that conversation and think about that in a sense, and like I'm just sitting there, I'm like listening to this conversation, I'm talking and stuff, and I'm like kind of listening, but also like deeply engaged in like the color of this carpet that's really freaking annoying me, or like so like a lot of things around me, I'm thinking like yeah, I'm looking at a movie poster, or I'm looking at a an album cover of like, you know, my favorite band or my favorite artist. So it's like I try not to look at things that are particularly right inside the art world, because it gets stagnant real quick when you go down there.
Mm.
And so I try to find things from outside, because I don't know, like, and even what I make from that is still going to be like, it's not going to be original. And so I'm okay with that. I've settled with that like a few years ago. I'm like, anything I produce now from this point on, if I'm going to take this seriously, it's not going to be original. Like, let's just be honest. But I can, however, take things and twist it. And that, I guess that's kind of what's in everyone's favor, when it comes to creating. So.
I get that from a personal expression point of view, but what about when you're working with clients and there's there's expectations?
That question gets asked of me a lot. Like like Maddie asks me that a lot as well. And that's what's pretty much like inhibited me from even doing studio work for like a design agency or anything like that. That, and also 90% of it being that I just never got any job or any internship anywhere. Like applied everywhere and I couldn't get anything. So that question's a hard one, because most like big designers, let's talk like big, even fashion designers, let's like
Tom Ford.
People come to them for their style and what they can offer, yeah. And that's what I've tried to be building over the years, like building myself up to a point where, yeah, a recognizable brand, and not caring too much what I post on social media, in terms of not in terms of ideas or opinions, but I'm talking like visually, and trying to like take pictures of how or post things how they actually are, instead of like trying to mask it and try to make it something else. And that always has its like downfalls as well. Like you're still trying to fit a certain brand, but in a sense, like to answer that question, you've got to create. Well, for me personally, I had to create a certain look for myself, a certain brand, but also like I had to show a certain part of my life on social media, to show like kind of where my head's at, because it's more than just like color palettes, and it's more than just like design. It's also about like, where's my head at as an artist.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably even more important than showing people what like logos I can do, or what color schemes I can pull off. So it's like, yeah. So I feel like I try to get to that stage where I didn't have to kind of mold too much to what people wanted me to create, but rather people came to me for my style.
Do you think that's
again? Yeah, what were you saying?
Do you think that's one of the biggest? How can I say this? Do you think that's one of Kanye's best characteristics, that he just unequivocally and unapologetically is himself?
Yeah, like he said in that Letterman interview, he was saying his biggest superpower is that he can't be influenced.
Boy, I love that, man.
Yeah, but that's such a hard concept to even think about, because I can't think of myself as never being influenced.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Kanye's like, this is why Kanye is so special in my opinion. Like, I know the guy's a complete wanker sometimes. I understand that.
So does he, I think.
uh, what was that?
I think he does as well, though, and that's part of his gift.
No, and yeah, he knows that as well. But I think he's okay with that,
That's right.
and that's probably the coolest thing about Kanye is that he's okay with his flaws and he's happy to talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
But like the whole fact of not being influenced, that's like that's a superpower I wish I had, like, and I think a lot of people wish that as artists. To say that he's just never influenced at all, I don't know so much, but to boldly say that is another thing as well. So yeah, definitely. What was the question again before that?
I can't remember.
Ah, that's all right.
We were just riffing. I can't remember.
just going on to that like interview, the level of honesty in terms of like mental health and stuff like that. I think if Kanye has taught me anything, and like, I know a lot of people would like kind of cringe with me even saying that Kanye's taught me anything, but the Kanye's kind of taught me that it's okay to talk about my mental health, and it's okay to talk about what's honestly going on inside my head, or what's honestly going on in my life. And I think, like Kanye said, and he put it perfectly, was if you're a fan of Kanye, you're actually a fan of yourself. And like I think Kanye's kind of given a lot of like people in hip hop and a lot of people who do follow him, giving them the confidence to create. I think Tyler Creator as well said, trust in your ideas. He's always said that, like from when I was listening to Tyler and Tyler Creator in high school, like these like giants of the culture at the moment. Yeah, there's like a lot of scandal and a lot of stuff going on like in Hollywood and that sort of thing, but man, like to hear from like the greats and the bigs of like their field and hearing them say stuff like that, it empowers a generation, man. Like, and this is why the voice of an artist is almost more important than the president, because like kids who are growing up aren't listening to the president. President's boring at that stage. Like kids growing up right now listening to Kanye or listening to like Travis Scott and like bumping all that music and stuff like that, and like they're listening to what they have to say, and for people like Chance the Rapper to like do Bible studies openly live on Instagram and that sort of thing, like,
bro, Stormzy just sang a Christian song at Glastonbury. Stormzy, I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, I know. Like this is the thing, man. Like we're living in the best part of pop culture right now. I know people are like, nah, the 90s was so good and back in the day was, but dude, we're in like a time right now where like anything is possible. Like people who dress goth at like Travis Scott concerts, like, you know what I mean? And like guys, I don't know, like you'd struggle to find a group of people that just listen to one kind of music. Like I struggled to find that here in Melbourne, and Melbourne's like pretty into like, the like independent music type of thing, and like and going to gigs on Brunswick Street or in Fitzroy, like people are pretty much into that. But like Melbourne's like one just massive cesspool of just everything, like everyone's just like into everything, and like I don't know what it's like outside of Melbourne. I haven't been outside of Melbourne like a lot, but man, it's good. It's like such a thriving place, and it's so easy to be creative in a space where like anything is possible. And I feel like, yeah, I don't know.
You know, it's funny when I hear you talk about culture and the icons, the iconoclasts of culture. We're thinking about words like individuality and empowerment, and we're thinking about words like creativity. And you talk about Melbourne like it's like utopia, like cultural utopia. And
it almost is.
Something that this is just an inevitable reality of me studying theology. That's the place where I want to go worship my God. That's the place where God is. Can you tell me why our churches don't look like that? I don't know. From my experiences, from the churches I've been a part of, our churches are void of everything you've just spoken about. What can we
You
as
know,
churches, what can we as Christians, instead of judging the culture, actually learn from it and take it as created beings? You know, these people who are in the culture are children of God, given gifts by God. We can learn something from that. What do you think the church can take from these kind of people and these spaces in culture? Because I seriously, just listening to you, that's the kind of church I want to go to. I want to go to Kanye's Sunday services.
um, yeah. Well, look, I think a veil needs to be dropped before any of that's even possible, and I say that because um, the church has a negative stigma almost anywhere you go,
Hmm.
beside in the bubble of Adventism or the bubble of Christianity. Um, and to really for the church to actually open up to any of all of this, and I don't think the church even necessarily needs to open up to every single thing that the pop culture world has to offer, because I think a lot of there's a lot of dark web in a lot of these places as well, and I'm happy to admit that, and like I'm happy to say that like not all of pop culture is beneficial to young society or even the world in general, but what with the pockets of it that is, I think church needs to drop a veil, and the veil is love,
Mm.
like, and I think a lot of people who are listening to this podcast, or people just doing their daily grind every day, have been burnt from church, and not just maybe burnt out, but also burnt by people. Um, and I think love has always. I listen to anyone's story of who's gone to church and now doesn't, and you can tell that the only issue there was actually the person. All they needed to do was just love on them a little bit. Maybe the person who left church was wrong in what they did. Not by leaving church, sorry, but like maybe there's situations that they did that might have been wrong. But there's always room for the church and the church family
Hmm.
to show love on that situation. So I think for the church to even embrace any of this, and this is my frustration, because I wanted to work for the conference. I've wanted to do things for our church conference. And I've got ideas. I've got like um, things I want to say, and stuff I want to do, and like I've got so many things in my mind like bubbled up in there that I would love to like do for the conference, and I think and a lot of things that could probably solve a lot of the whole issue with young people leaving the church and that sort of thing. But that's not going to happen until that veil is dropped. Not just for me, but like just for like people in general. Like you bring someone who doesn't go to church, and let's just say they have a few tattoos. They didn't wear the right attire when they came to church or anything like that, and you brought them there. People look at them sideways, man. Like, and 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 people aren't dumb. Like, you bring someone who's not Seventh Adventist to a church, they can see people looking at them strange. Like, and and sadly, like that's why it's so tough for me to bring anyone that I know um, to church, like anyone that I know outside of the Adventism bubble, and which is very small for me at this point. Like I don't really have a bubble here in Melbourne, like a Christian bubble. I've been pretty like out there and
Mm.
hanging out with a lot of different people, and firmly say that I go to church and firmly say that I love Jesus. I tell people that. I'm not scared to tell my art friends or my design friends or my coffee friends or any. I tell them I go to church. In fact, like I've had someone reach out to me. I put Bible verses up on my Instagram all the time. I don't care about that. Like I'm not scared to say anything like any of that stuff. Like, and I've actually had people message me directly and say, dude, I want to go to church. Like people I would never like. Not that I don't think that they're church people, but like just people I just out of the blue. Like and I didn't think that I ever had an impact like that. But people. I don't know. People listen, man. People absorb, and like we're all like kids. We're absorbing everything, and it really depends on what you're going to allow people to absorb from your character. Like yeah.
I get
I
it.
don't know.
I
How do
don't.
you find it in
I,
Ipswich.
I don't even, when someone asks me, because recently I've been going and doing interviews, it's been crazy. I've been literally taking my camera, taking this, going to the Brisbane Botanical Gardens and saying, do you want to have an interview about faith and talk? And, it's a lot of no's, but a lot of yeses. It's been crazy. And they always ask me, are
Yeah.
you a Christian? And I always say, what do you mean? Because Christian, Adventist, it's all tainted. And as soon as I say yes to that question, they put me in a certain box. They put me in a certain group of people. And it really, it hurts me because at the end of the day, it's just, you said it perfectly. You are a follower of Jesus. And that I think is most important for me. And because of that, you're right. For me, love is everything. It's absolutely everything.
I've noticed that in things that you post as well. It's very love driven, and
it has
it's
to
almost But do you think that the whole love message? Do you think that can kind of come across as cliche to people?
100%, and that's
because it's been said so much.
It's been said so much. Hollywood has completely distorted what we think of love. Listen, this is the greatest thought experiment you could do on love. Imagine that you're a leader in a church, and a family walks in one day, and they proceed to tell you a story about how a man walked into their children's school, shot their child and a bunch of kids in the class, and then was caught alive and went to jail. The only thing that will heal that family, the only thing that will allow that family to ever be in the space to forgive the person that killed their child, the only thing that will ever help them reconcile the future is love. You're right. The problem is we have continuously misrepresented what love means, and we have made it into this empty word. Love is the most difficult thing in the world. You want to forgive someone? You're going to need love. You want to love your enemy? I mean, the thing that will get you to see the ISIS kid differently is love. That's it, first and foremost. And I think the biggest problem, in my opinion, is that we don't respect the word love enough. We think, as you said, it's just some fluffy thing. And it has been preached in a fluffy way. And the second thing is, we've misunderstood it. And so now I post stuff all the time on my Instagram like God is love. And people say, yeah, God is love, without really understanding what that means. Without really understanding. Because if I walked up to, if I walked up to you and I killed your best friend, the only thing that's going to help you is love. It's deep. It's hard.
Yeah, but I think like my whole thing has been always, when it comes to design or anything like that, it's reframing the way people see things. So I don't want to be that cookie cutter like Christian who has the ritual of going to church every week and nothing else. And I've spoken to a few friends about this, and particularly one friend about the framing of how church is seen by people, and how the classic Christian is looked on. And my whole life, as like coming to Melbourne from New South Wales, is like my whole thing has been, how am I going to frame myself differently from the rest of Christians? And this is not to be like, I'm not trying to be like that indie guy that's just trying to be different or anything like that. That's definitely not what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is approaching things the way I would like to see someone approach me from that standpoint. Because if you got to think about like how people are viewing Christianity in general. Like Hillsong's like the biggest face of Christianity we can see. Like, I mean, an atheist knows who Hillsong is. And so it's about changing. And I'm not saying that Hillsong's doing a bad thing with how they've marketed themselves and how they've shown their image, but it's also about like how can we look different to even that. Like how can we go into a pub and talk with people, and have chats and have a conversation with the person next to you on the train, or have a and I always regret this. I always regret when I'm sitting next to someone and I had ample opportunity to talk to them and I just didn't, and I always regret that because it's relational, and like it's so hard to be relational in a city like of people who are just trying to get from point A to point B. So how am I going to in my designs, in like in the art world, in Christianity, in love, in my next door neighbor, how am I going to look different from the cookie cutter blank pieces of paper they see every day? You know what I mean? And
And that is
like,
why, we need designers and people with your kind of perspective to be more involved in church life, bro. Because as me, I'm my skills are in writing and reading and getting deep into the academia. I sometimes struggle
yeah.
with things of what you're talking about, and that's why we need your perspectives, which we don't have, bro,
And
because
that's the
all
thing,
the designers have been chased away by the just absolute stagnant nature of the church.
and if you are going to be a designer, you're doing it for free.
That's
That's
another thing.
the other side of it.
Not me though. If I
Like,
was to be a pastor, I get paid because I'm
yeah,
seen as
and
valuable.
that's exactly what I was just about to say. But if you're a pastor and you're pushing the word of God in that way, it's seen as more of a tangible and accessible thing. I think art and design genuinely scare people. They genuinely scare people. I'm not just talking about the price tag, but people are generally scared of um, what art allows in, because
Mm.
you look like a certain thing. Because if you quack like a duck, you must be a duck. And like you look at Hillsong and you look at their material and their marketing, they quack like a duck, but they aren't a duck. You know what I mean? Like they marketing themselves the way you would see another pop artist market
Or
themselves,
Adidas.
but it's got a message. You know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Because I think
Is it
um,
disingenuous?
no, I think it's a language. It's like when you move to another country, you've got to learn a new language. It's the
Mm.
same thing with like the church having to move into the world. I'm not saying become the world. I'm saying like move into the world. You've got to learn their language. How else do you communicate with people? And that's the beautiful thing about art, is that you can almost hide behind it in a sense.
Mm.
Um, and I think what Hillsong has done is capture that perfectly. Like we're this thing, um, but we'll show you we can do this as well. You know what I mean? And it's yeah. And I use Hillsong as an example often because I think people can mostly like grasp that concept more so, because I don't really know who else to use in that sense that's as well known. But like you you've just got to I don't know, when it comes to church and it comes to design and art, they just don't see it. Like, and it's the biggest thing for me is that God is the great designer. We're talking about him as the great designer, the great creator. But people don't even know what that means. Like you're actually saying like you're literally saying he's an artist,
Mm.
but don't employ any artists or take art seriously or design seriously in your church, because that's not important, and like it's like, to me that's like slapping creation in the face, like and that sounds really dramatic, like, and I apologize if I've offended anyone by saying that, but like it's like you've said that, yeah. How's a better example for me to use? Like you've said, um, let's just take your favorite musician. Yeah. You've said that person. Let's just say that person's I don't know, Britney Spears for the argument. Um, I'm gonna practice so much so that I can become Britney Spears, right? But I'm not going to be paid for the gigs that I'm doing. I'm not going to be like any commercial thing I endorse or anything like that, I'm not going to be paid for or anything like. It's kind of like that. It's like we're going to use what you have, but we're not going to take it seriously and put money value to it. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
this isn't even about money. This is just about the fact that like you put money to something that you take seriously. We put money in the church offering, because we take church seriously. So I just feel I've been even burnt by church, like by constantly being asked to do things.
For free.
Unless I've put my hand up for something, is the only time I don't feel used. I know that kind of sounds selfish and that sort of thing, but I put my hand up for church here in Melbourne to help with the visuals and that sort of thing, and that's something that I'm very passionate about, is like the visual aspect of church. But yeah, it's
The funny
I struggle.
the funny thing is, the Bible, time and time again, says that God reveals himself through nature. Simply through the beauty of nature, God reveals himself. It's not even that it has a message, just the beauty of what God made reveals himself. So wouldn't some of the greatest revelation in our church be that of the work of the artist? That would be some of the greatest revelation of God. Not the preacher. I mean, and not even the art with a message, just the art.
Yeah. But that's not even to discredit the preacher, because you yourself, it's an art, and this is the whole thing, is that I think the biggest mistake that we make is not seeing everything as art, because the minute you do that is you're breaking this part into not art, so this part is automatically taken more seriously because it's not art. But I think if we see everything in that tangible, not even thinking of it as art, but like seeing it as everything is beautiful, everything is creation, I think will our our perception of things will just change instantly, because then we'll see the value in a speaker speaking up front, because that's their form of artistry.
Mm-hmm.
Or the ladies who do the flowers, or the men who do the flowers, or the people who coordinate each day at church, and seeing those parts as an artistry, I think we'll have less problem. Like Jackson Pollock said, and I think I referenced this in a previous podcast. I've used my references very
When
very
they're good, they're
loosely.
good.
I use it. Jackson Pollock said, like, if we stop, I think it was Time magazine asked him, what do you think of these people calling your work macaroni or like spaghetti and a disaster, or whatever people would call this stuff? And he was like, if people just left their stuff at home and looked at the art, I don't look at a bed of flowers and tear my hair out as to what that is. I just look at the bed of flowers and I see it as beautiful,
Mm.
And he's like, if we can see art that way, it'll just change people's perception on everything, and like Jackson Pollock said, like, if we leave our stuff at home and just focus on what is actually important, I think we'll have less problems with finding things to be beautiful. And when he said leave things at home, I'm not saying like bring a different version of yourself. I think
Your
leave
expectations?
leave your expectations, your judgment, and all of that. Leave it at home, and like let's bring our torn apart selves. You know what I mean? Like let's bring the raw self.
Do you think that's been something? Do you think that's been something that's carried you through your quote unquote artistic failures? Like say you put a piece of art out that just isn't received by the masses. I mean, for 99% of people, me included, I've made videos that just haven't hit, and it's I feel it. But if I have the mentality that art is art and everything is art and it doesn't really matter because it's art, does that carry you through that failure? I mean, how do you process failures like that?
It's the only thing that's actually kept me being an artist. The only thing. Like I get like 12 likes on things I post, man. Like I post, I really honestly, and people always like put their nose up at me when I say this, but I genuinely don't care about the likes. I honestly don't.
I believe you.
I honestly only care about what my feed looks like because that's aesthetically pleasing to me. But like, um, I yeah, what the things that don't get received, I'm like honestly don't care. I like it, and that's enough for me.
Hmm.
Because I'm not creating my art for everyone really. Like I'm creating it for myself. It's my output. If people like it, that's amazing. Like I genuinely appreciate it when people do tell me they like it. But I'm a very small artist, man. Like I don't get many likes. I don't really fish for likes. I don't really fish for follows. And that's just talking social media wise. Like I don't the stuff that I put out publicly, like on walls and that sort of stuff. That in itself is like I didn't put my artwork on a wall that had nothing on it. I always put my artwork on walls that already have things there, or there's other people that have put stuff there as well. I'm not trying to like single myself out as like this self-proclaimed artist. I'm like I love collaboration. This right now, what we're doing right now is amazing. Like my favorite thing is collaborating with people. So, um, and I think yeah, I think people are still molding to the whole collaboration thing though. Everyone wants to kind of do their own thing, and that's fine for that might be fine for some people, but like I'm very extroverted when it comes to my art. I like to do things with other people. So
Bro, that's love.
yeah, that's yeah, I guess so.
Love
And
is
I
others
try that, man.
centered.
I'm not definitely furthest thing from perfect when it comes to love. Like I'm still have a lot to learn, but um but the world of art is it's a beautiful thing, man. I wish churches were more like that. It's
Mm,
very forgiving. Like the art world's very forgiving.
mm.
People are very supportive in it. And there's definitely downfalls in the art industry, but I mean, yeah, I think I find my most freedom there.
Mm. So I'm going to wrap it up soon. I'm just going to ask one more question, and I think this is going to hit well. Um, and it's this. You've actually frozen on my screen. Are you? Am I frozen on yours?
No, you're still good.
Okay, good. If you knew that you were going to die tomorrow, and your entire legacy would be erased, so your Instagram, everything, it's going to be erased except for 3 chapters of a book that you could write. What would those 3 chapters be titled? It's the last thing that you can leave. It's the only thing that anyone is going to have of who Wes is. Your 3 truths. What are those 3 truths going to be? What are you going to give to the world, Wes?
Um, I think I'd 3 chapters. Um, is this like to better understand the question? Is this like um chapters as in um 3 things that I hold most dear, or 3 things that I'd like people to know about me?
No, it's 3 things you hold dear, 3 truths that you want to leave.
Mm,
So like most people have a legacy that's not about them necessarily, like I was a man or I did this. It's about what do you want people to know that will help them? What's your legacy? What 3 truths do you want to share
mhm,
with people that will really help them in their lives, that really mean something to
mm.
you?
I would say if it's ugly, share it anyway.
Hmm.
Um, I would also say I would say speak to people more, and that's just general. I'm talking like people next to you on the train,
Mm.
spark up conversation, even if it's shallow. Um, and the third would be something um, love. I guess I'd say love generously, and in that as well, forgive generously as well.
Mm.
Um, so those would probably be the 3 for me.
Mm. I love that. I think those 3 things are missing in a lot of culture and a lot of spaces in the world. And I think if more people had those 3 truths, the world would be a lot better place.
I hope so. Yeah,
Mm.
definitely hope so.
Thanks for being on here, Wes. I really appreciate the time. I mean, we banged out an hour.
That's crazy.
And you're
It's
still.
actually felt like longer, but
I know, and you're still frozen on mine. I literally can't see you. But thanks so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate your time.
thanks for having me, man.
See you, mate.